We're back. Today we're going to hit on the Ford 3.7 liter Cyclone engine, aka the Duratec 3.7. This is a V6 engine from Ford, aluminum black, aluminum cylinder heads, first released in the 2008 Mazda CX-9s, and it's still in production today. You can find it in a lot of Lincoln, Mazda, and Ford trucks, SUVs, and sedans. Earlier versions of this engine feature VVT on the intake cams only. In 2011, Ford slowly started to integrate the upgraded version of this engine, which is a twin independent variable cam timing system. And so they're still producing it today. That's got to be a decent indicator of reliability. However, there are definitely some things you're going to want to look out for. The first thing I want to talk about is the cam phasers. So the timing technology on this engine is pretty complex, but essentially the cam phaser's job is to rotate the camshaft in relation to the timing, and these are known to fail early. If these do fail, you will begin to run into performance issues like slow acceleration, or your emission system probably won't be as effective. You might have a rough idle or even running rough. And we all are familiar with the infamous phaser rattling. So, some say that this is a lubrication issue and that there isn't proper oiling that can get to the phasers for them to operate properly all the time. Whatever the reason is, this is definitely not good for your vehicle if the phasers fail. Second issue here, and probably the larger issue of the two, is going to be issues with the water pump. This was a big enough issue where they did bring forward a class action lawsuit, which was eventually dismissed. Normally, if you have an issue with your water pump, you would notice dripping or puddles underneath your vehicle. However, the front wheel drive applications that have this engine in there, some of them have a transversely mounted water pump. That means that the water pump is internally mounted. It is behind the front cover. So instead of leaking right out onto the ground, it actually has to leak through holes in the timing cover. And instead of going all the way through, what eventually happens is that it starts mixing with your oil. And we all know that this can be really problematic. It's going to lead to lubrication issues, and it could potentially lead to overheating as well. So this pump typically fails right around the bearing, and that allows too much play for the timing center to move around, and it will eventually start to leak. This job could get a little bit pricey. It's a little bit more labor intensive than most water pumps are, but the real problem comes into play here. If you don't catch it early enough, it's going to cause a lot of other damage. It's also not isolated just to this engine. So the 3.5 EcoBoost and the 3.5 Duratec also have this same problem. So other than those two problems, there is not a whole lot else to hit on. There are some issues with the ignition coils that tend to fail a little bit earlier than you would expect them to. If you are keeping up with your regular maintenance, you should catch things like the ignition coils while you're in there. So hopefully it's not a humongous source of issues for anyone. The only thing holding me back for this is that the problems that they do have are large problems that are expensive fixes. So if you've got any experience with this one, I would love to hear about it in the comments.